if you want to get good at something, you have to put 10,000 hours into it. And 10,000 hours is a ridiculous amount of time, but it just shows that if you really want to be the best at something, you have to put all your time into it. And of course, you have to have room for other things, have balance in your life. But
Hello, xin chào, thầy Tony đây. Hôm nay Tony rất hãnh diện được chia sẻ một câu chuyện của một nhân vật cực kỳ tài năng trong cả thể thao và làm phim. Gabriel mới được nhập vào trường đại học Duke, một trong những trường cạnh tranh nhất ở nước Mỹ, và đã từng đạt được một giải thưởng trong cuộc thi làm phim quốc tế. Không những vậy, Gabriel còn đang luyện tập để chuẩn bị cho kỳ thi SEA Games tiếp theo của đội tuyển Việt Nam. Vậy thì làm sao từ một cậu bé hiền lành, hơi nhút nhát một chút, mà chỉ sau một vài năm thì bạn đã trở thành một người rất mạnh mẽ và kiên định trong tất cả những điều bạn làm, để rồi đạt được những kết quả ấn tượng như vậy? Mời mọi người lắng nghe câu chuyện của Gabriel nhé. Và nếu các bạn thấy những thông tin này hữu ích thì các bạn hãy like, share và subscribe cho những người bạn bè để lan tỏa thông điệp này cho nhiều người hơn. Hello, xin chào. Chào mừng các bạn đã đến với Chuyện Du học, chuỗi podcast được thành lập bởi chương trình College Campus của Everest Education. Đây là nơi chúng ta chia sẻ những câu chuyện truyền cảm hứng liên quan đến quá trình chuẩn bị hồ sơ du học, cũng như cuộc sống và văn hóa tại Mỹ. Tôi là Tony Ngô, chủ tịch và đồng sáng lập của Everest Education và là người dẫn dắt podcast hôm nay. Trở lại với Season 2, mùa phát sóng thứ 2, Chuyện Du học sẽ mang đến những góc nhìn mới về trải nghiệm của cụ học sinh của đại học danh tiếng Stanford, UPenn, Amherst. Ngoài ra, chúng tôi cũng đã mời các chuyên gia trong các lĩnh vực, những cố vấn du học giàu kinh nghiệm của College Campus tham gia mùa 2, hứa hẹn mang đến góc nhìn 360 độ về hành trình du học sắp tới của các em học sinh. Các bạn đã sẵn sàng chưa? Let's go! Good to see you, man.
good to see you too. Thanks for having me.
So glad we could do this.
Of course, it's a pleasure.
All right. I am super excited for this opportunity for us to chat formally, Gabe.
Yeah, me too. Thank you for having me.
We've known each other, or I've known of you for a long, long time, and we've had the chance to work together through College Campus for a few years, and I've gotten to see your tremendous personal growth, and I feel like there's still so many layers to your story that I'd love to dig even deeper and share that with our community. So thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, of course. It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me again.
So yeah, first off, before we do introductions even, I'd love to just start with some fun warm-up questions.
Yeah, sounds good.
So let's shake it up and see what we get. Okay. How about you point and then I'll pick it up.
That one right there.
All right. Which sports do you want to play at the SEA Games?
I want to do the decathlon, which is part of track and field. It's like 10 different events over the span of 2 days.
Ooh.
Ideally, yeah.
And what are the 10 events?
So the first day you have the 100-meter dash, and then you have the long jump, shot put, and then you have high jump, then 400 meters. And then the next day it's 110 hurdles. And you have discus, pole vault, javelin, and then the 1500 to finish off.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay. It's pretty much everything.
Yeah, pretty much everything.
Next question. Here we go.
This one right here.
This one. Your favorite boy band?
Oh God. I think you have to go with One Direction. I think you have
One
to
Direction?
Yeah, I'd say One Direction.
Man, you're young. Okay. One more.
Okay, this one right here.
Pho or pizza?
Pho, 100%. Of course, I have to go with pho.
Awesome. Okay, done with that. So first off, Gabe, just so the audience can get a little bit of perspective on your background, can I ask you to give a quick introduction?
Yeah, of course. My name is Gabriel. I'm 18 years old, and I'm from Canada and Vietnam. I've grown up in Vietnam my whole life and studied here. And I love filmmaking and I love sports. Those are like the two things about myself that I'd say kind of define who I am.
Absolutely. And I think I really want to dig deeper into how those interests develop and how that's intersecting with your college plans and all that is kind of the main topic for today. So yeah, thank you again for taking the time to share your story.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, maybe to start off, you know, filmmaking is an area in Vietnam, media as an industry is still rapidly growing from a small base. Like, how does someone who grew up in Vietnam develop that interest and then take it to where you are now, where, I mean, you're entering Duke, focusing on directing films? Like, how do you go from a kid who has that interest to this?
Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, I don't know, I always liked taking pictures. I had my mom's like young, her little camera that I would use to take pictures. And I was really lucky because I was actually introduced to film through a class at my school. And it was the only year that they were offering the class.
Yeah.
And so coincidentally, it was part of my schedule. It was a rotating schedule, and I had it for that year. And it was only one quarter, but during that class, we learned the ins and outs of filmmaking. We made films, and we finished off with like a documentary. And I just remember making the documentary and just enjoying every part of it, from pre-production to post-production. It was just such a thrilling thing for me to do. It's like, not only can I make visual images, I can actually craft stories with it too.
Yeah. And
that's definitely the time I remember distinctly that my love for filmmaking started. It's just such a distinct moment because that's definitely how it started. So
was there a specific aspect of the filmmaking process that like really called out to you? Or I know, like, actually I've seen you in your films, from everything from the directing to the script writing to the acting itself. Is there a specific aspect of it that you really enjoy?
I think the greatest thing about filmmaking is the fact that it's like a culmination of so many works. And so, when I was younger, I liked drawing. I also liked writing. And you put those two together, but it's not like films.
Yeah.
Like with films, you have everything. You have audio, you have writing, you have visuals, and it's this whole combination of everything together. And so it's the sum of many parts. And I think it's the most complete work of art that you can do nowadays, because like I said, there's so much going on with a film.
Yeah.
With a book, you're writing it, and of course you can craft these stories, but with films, you're adding the visuals on top of that, giving people this characters to look at, the setting to look at. And so it's really up to you to craft the entire story. Of course, you can leave things up to interpretation with the writing, but it's not up to the people who are reading the book to have the imagination with a movie, right? Like, you're crafting everything, and as a director, it's your vision, it's your take.
Yeah.
And like, that's definitely what makes it so drawing to me, because it's such this complete work of art.
Yeah. Very cool. I remember you showing me your portfolio when we first started talking about like film school as a potential avenue for yourself, right? And I was super, super impressed with actually the storytelling aspect of it. How, when I see portfolios of kids who are, say they have an interest in film, their student films are not really nearly as well polished as, as your storytelling was, building the elements of surprise and building up the character development. I remember learning that your character in the film that you showed me was actually had already been deceased. It took me a while to figure that out. What inspired you to take kind of your early experiences there and then to go compete, internationally, right? You submitted into the Australian Film Festival, right?
That's actually worldwide film festival.
Worldwide film festival. Okay.
Yeah. Based in Australia, but yeah.
Okay. So what prompted you to take like a hobby and say, hey, I'm gonna put myself out there?
I think the biggest thing that sort of pushed me to expand my knowledge with filmmaking and sort of grow as a filmmaker was when I really started realizing that I wanted to do it as like a career. And I knew that once I wanted to do it as a career, I had to I had to put myself out there.
Yeah.
And so whatever opportunity I had, I took it. I made films for my dad's company. I made films for my friends' companies.
Yeah.
I was just getting so much experience with the camera. And as a director, you're not part of the editing. Well, you are part of the editing process, but you're not the primary editor. You're not the primary VFX artist or sound designer. But because I had so much hands-on experience with the camera, I had the ability to tell my stories that I wrote. And so I think I really attribute my ability to create a more polished product to the fact that I had so much hands-on experience because I put myself out there and I asked people if they wanted films. And so once I sort of had that experience, it was really a matter of crafting these stories and telling the stories through my films.
That is cool, right? I think a lot of students put on this unrealistic expectation on themselves where they see this endpoint of like the big award that they want to win or whatever, or even a college dream, right? But then it doesn't feel realistic to them as someone who's still new to, particularly into a field where they have not yet mastered some of the fundamental skills. But I really like your maturity or awareness that like, hey, I'm just gonna grab every opportunity I can to get experience, get better at it, right? I think it shows a lot, and one of the most impressive traits I've seen from you throughout our time together has been just your relentlessness to say like, hey, when you put your head down to say you're gonna do something, whether it's on the filmmaking side or in a bit we'll touch on the sports side, like, you're gonna put in the hard work to hone your craft, which I love. I really, really
appreciate it. Thank you.
Very cool. So, and then you decided that for sure you want to go study film beyond all this.
Yeah, like I was really lucky in the sense that because I had that class as a 6th grader.
Yeah. That was a 6th grade class?
Right, yeah.
Oh my God.
At the beginning of middle school, because the reason I didn't even get to choose this class.
Yeah.
How it is in 6th grade is they want you to experiment with all the elective classes, so they'll give you a quarter of each one. And instead of like health or something like that, you had the filmmaking class. And I was so lucky to have it. It was, I think, the 2nd quarter I had it. And I went into Christmas knowing that I wanted to make films in college for the rest of my life. So as a 6th grader, I was so lucky to have that sort of like thought that I already wanted to do that. So I spent all my years sort of crafting my skills and making sure that I did everything I could to set myself up for the future.
See, that is so cool. And I think that's where you're incredibly lucky, because most students do not really have that awareness and realization that this is what they want to do anywhere close to 6th grade.
Yeah, no, like I said, I'm extremely lucky for sure.
Yeah. But now that you have that, like, you know, I feel like it's jobs of teachers and coaches around you to push you as far as you're really willing to go. Right?
Absolutely.
And can you share a little bit about some of the guidance you've had first in filmmaking that kind of like took you from that 6th grader to your own personal interest, and then how do you continue to hone the craft and get guidance in film?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's such a great point that you brought up, because I have to say that not only was the class the motivator for me to pursue filmmaking, but it really was the teacher. We had this one teacher that was working at the school as the media kind of guy at our school. He would make the videos, the promotional videos, all the movies for our school. And his name was Mr. Neesmith, and I had him in 6th grade for that class. And we still talk today. I still send him my films 6 years later. I sent him all my submissions to all the film schools. And, you know, it's really having that teacher that is not only willing to teach, but also go further than that, make sure they can cultivate like an interest within these people. And my grade has so many people that are so interested in film because of that one quarter, that one quarter in class that everyone got to take. I can name like 5 people off the top of my head that are, you know, interested in film or had or did film for some part of their time. Not many continued, but it still had that lasting impact. And so in terms of guidance, it's not necessarily having a teacher that is this amazing person at what they do. It's really that they're amazing at motivating you to do it as well. And so yeah, Mr. Neesmith, I still talk to him today, still send him my films, and it's just, that is definitely a person that's had a huge impact in, I guess, my filmmaking journey. Very
cool. Shifting gears a little bit, but using films, I remember when I saw your YouTube channel, I think the first film that showed up was you dunking a basketball. Or trying to dunk a basketball for a long time. Tell me about why you decided to not just learn to dunk a basketball, but then film that journey as well.
Yeah, so I guess the YouTube channel kind of started as like a passion project, because you know, we had the pandemic and all of us were at home. And we didn't really have much to do. School was postponed for however many weeks. And so I think this starts to kind of explain my love for sports and the combination with filmmaking. And so I knew that I wanted to, you know, start. I used to make YouTube videos all the time when I was younger, albeit they were not very good. But like, I guess that was a start of also.
You gotta start somewhere. Yeah.
Exactly. So, so I told myself that I wanted to start a YouTube channel where I would sort of document my progress with athletics, but in a way that would help me push my filmmaking as well. And I thought it was such a beautiful combination. And so I guess it really started when I was like, okay, I love athletics, I love filmmaking. How can we combine these together to keep myself motivated and also maybe help other people? And as soon as I launched the first video, I had like 10 messages from different people asking me different advice and stuff like that. It was
on how to dunk a ball or
just
how to make
anything,
a video?
athletics, mostly athletics.
Okay.
It was about that,
Yeah.
but I did receive a few compliments for the videos, but it was really about sort of not only like sharing my journey and keeping myself motivated, but also, you know, inspiring others.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I don't have the biggest platform, you know, even if I just inspire one person, it makes it all worth it.
Yeah. Beautiful. See, I don't think I would be able to make a video about dunking a basketball because I don't think I'd be confident that I would achieve that outcome. But so if you had not actually dunked it on the last one, would you have published your video anyways?
Well, I mean, the first video I posted was my journey up to the first dunk.
Yeah.
And so by that time, I already had dunked for the first time.
Oh,
it was already in the bag.
yeah.
It wasn't like I started my journey. But I guess I wanted to kind of recount, like, because it was such a big like milestone in my life. Like my dad was talking to me, like he played basketball his whole life. I played with him when I was really young. He coached me throughout the years. This was before I got into track, when I really loved basketball. And I still remember when I was about 8 years old, him dunking a basketball at like 35 or something like that. And he was like, you know, showing off, of course. And I was like, you know, I want to do that too. And so I just practiced all the time. So that was really the first time that I had something that I was really working towards.
Yeah.
That I had to dedicate myself, because it's not easy to dunk a basketball, right? Yeah. And so, yeah, once I had that feat, I wanted to, you know, kind of document it and see how much it took from me to get to that. And I guess that's how it started, with the combination of filmmaking and athletics.
Very cool. And so, yeah, your love of athletics as a category has always been there, but the specific sport has changed.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I assume for most 8-year-olds, track and field is not even on their radar, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So how did you go from basketball to track and field?
Yeah, so I guess this kind of comes back to this idea of me training for dunking. And so a lot of the times, you know, dunking is a skill, not necessarily, it's part of basketball, but it's not something that defines you as a basketball player.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you can dunk, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're an amazing basketball player, right? It just means you're athletic.
Yeah.
And so during this time that I was training, a lot of the time was spent actually working on my athleticism so that I could jump. Not a lot of time was spent doing the specifics for basketball.
Yeah.
And I just started realizing that I really liked this idea of improving as an athlete.
Yep.
And you know, a sport where you're specifically trying to be the best athlete is track and field. It's specific events: jumping, throwing, running.
Mm-hmm.
And so once I sort of had this idea, my dad also told me about the time that he was high jumping, and this kind of blends in with the dunking. And he told me that he cleared his height, which is like 6 feet, and that's a big milestone, clearing your height. And so I told him that I would try to beat that. And this was right after I dunked, and I was like, okay, you know, I went out to my school, and the first day I got 5'10". So he was like, oh, okay, I think he might beat me. And then the second practice I beat him. So that was kind of like the start of, you know, oh, maybe I do love this sport more than I do love basketball, because I was training all this time to be a better athlete, not necessarily to be a better basketball player. And that's when I started sort of switching into a sport that I was really training for this whole time.
Very interesting. So just random question. So I'm obviously shorter than you. If I clear my height and you clear your height, is mine less impressive though, just because it's still lower? I
think, well, unfortunately in the sport of track and field, there isn't like more points if you're jumping relative to your height.
Yeah, it's just absolute.
It's the absolute value, right? And to me, I'd say it's just as impressive if you're clearing your height, but unfortunately to the rest of the track, they won't really care. I mean, even for me, like most of the guys high jumping are ginormous, so. Oh man. Yeah.
Well, when I was 16, 17, I used to be able to clear my height, doing like, you know, martial arts, front rolling.
Oh, nice, yeah.
Not the over the back high jumping technique, but that is long gone now. Well, cool. Okay. So same question. Now, how do you go from someone who has an interest in athletics to, I don't know if we actually haven't even talked about it yet, but like you have a spot on the national team, right? For Vietnam.
Working on it, yeah.
Working on the national spot. How do you go from, I want to do track and field to college athletics?
Right. Well, for my path, it was actually, I'm not gonna lie, it was extremely challenging, because the year that I wanted to take track and field seriously, my school cut the team entirely. So I didn't have any place to train with a coach.
Not because of COVID, just
because of COVID, they cut a lot of sports, but all the sports came back except for track and field. Ouch. Which was a bit of a bummer.
Yeah.
But,
oh my God.
Yeah. So a lot of it was spent training on my own, and just trying to find the motivation to push through it without a team, without coaches pushing you.
But you had no coach?
I had no coach for about a year and a half, I'd say.
Yeah.
And this was during the time, this was like the first time I cleared that bar and I beat my dad's record. That was when I really started going for it, because I knew that I was pretty close to, you know, having the potential to get onto a college team, which was the ultimate goal before I learned about the SEA Games, the national team in Vietnam. And a lot of it was spent, you know, training on my own, but like obviously I didn't know what I was doing, so I was trying my best to keep up with what everyone else was doing, and I didn't have a team, and so a lot of it was spent like that. But then one day my mom was like, okay, I want to try to see if we can get you on the team, because you know you are Vietnamese and maybe there is a place where Vietnamese athletes train here in Ho Chi Minh.
Right.
And I tried out the first time. She found a contact that sent us to the high jump coach in Ho Chi Minh, and I tried out. I was able to train there. So then I finally had a coach.
Oh.
Right.
But it was almost because of the crisis at your school that forced you to go find.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I was able to get great coaching at a great facility here in Ho Chi Minh, and training was going really well. It was progressing, and that's when the pandemic started.
Yeah.
And so at that time, when the pandemic started, obviously Vietnam was extremely strict with lockdown. No one was allowed to go out, and so I think it was maybe a month into my training, I had to stop everything. Yeah. And at that time, that was when I started the YouTube channel, and I was documenting my training for athletics, just general strength training and you know, jumping, dunking, and stuff like that. And I couldn't high jump, so I was dunking. I had a basketball hoop, right? And from there, I had the incredible opportunity to go to the States. Yeah. And that's sort of sort of the next sort of phase where I realized, okay, this is where track and field can really play a big part in my life. Yeah. And this is where I know that I want to take it seriously.
That's amazing though, right? So, and in Ohio, I remember you telling me stories of world-class coaches, college, collegiate level, Olympians,
right? Yeah,
coaches. Yeah. So to be in that environment, and then you're now plugged into the ecosystem.
Exactly.
Right. For all the colleges.
It was just such the environment was so like radiant with so much talent that it's almost impossible not to improve when you're around that much talent, right? Like in Vietnam or at my school, like no one could come close to clearing their height. Yeah. And so when you're there, there's no one to push you, but as soon as I got to Ohio at the track and field, or it's actually a high school that has basketball, swimming, but track and field is a really big sport there too. Yep. And there was just so much talent there, and the coaches were either at the Olympic trials or they competed at the Olympics. Right. And my pole vault coach was actually a gold medalist in 2004.
Oh damn!
So all of them were well qualified, and it was such a change to finally train with coaches that knew exactly what they were doing. And all I had to do was do it instead of have to like, you know, craft my own kind of training and stuff like that. So that was definitely a turning point, being in that environment full of talent, full of knowledge.
I mean, I think it's such a huge difference to have a coach versus a world-class coach.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And you know, it was obviously a huge investment of your time, commitment, logistics for your family to send you to Ohio in the middle of, you were doing high school.
Yes.
Virtually.
Yes.
Back in Vietnam while doing training in Ohio, I remember.
Yep.
Right? But sometimes like that investment is what is required in order to unlock that next level, if that's your ambition.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and that comes with just, you really have to want it. And I think, you know, after that 6-month period, if I didn't like track and field, I would have known by then. It was just such a grueling experience having to balance school until 4 a.m. some nights. Yeah. Training until 6 p.m. It was a full-time schedule.
All right, actually, so walk me through a day in the life of Gabriel before you go to Ohio. Let's rewind in Vietnam still, pre-pandemic. Yeah. What was a day like there? What was your routine like? Because I think the amount of discipline I remember you showing me was like so impressive. I think most adults don't have that level of discipline, right? And then I'd love to also get a snapshot of how that got even more extreme in Ohio. But so Vietnam, what was your daily schedule?
So in Vietnam, I would wake up, school's just 2 blocks away from my house. So I'd wake up at around maybe 7:30. I'd get to school at 8 o'clock, study. I'd have after school activities till maybe 6 o'clock. But at that time I was doing track and field. So 6 o'clock, had dinner, went back home, homework for 2 hours, was in bed by 10 p.m.
Yeah, every night.
Pretty much every night of school,
Your
that was
parents,
pretty
your
much
parents
it.
complained they never saw you. Like, no, mom, dad, I can't hang out with you for 30 minutes because I got homework and sleep to get to.
I mean, I was with them for the weekends, to be fair. But yeah, for the week, it was mostly that. It was obviously a lot of homework because I was in high school, starting to balance some clubs and things like that. Like, of course, I oversimplify it, but the point is that I was at school at 8.
Yeah.
I got home at 6.
Yeah.
I was in bed by 10. That was pretty much a typical day.
Yeah.
Every day
Okay.
for school day.
And then how does that flip in Ohio?
Right. So obviously with time zone differences, now that I'm studying virtually, I have to mold to the schedules in Vietnam. And I did have the option. I have to say that my school did say that I didn't have to be online past 10 p.m. and I could study asynchronously, which means that I would, communicate with the teacher to make sure I knew what I was missing out on and stuff like that. But obviously when you're in high school and it's my senior year and I'm taking all these AP classes, these HL classes, it is so valuable to have a teacher walk through everything. I can't just watch a presentation because I can't ask questions. So I ended up choosing to stay up. So school would start at 9 p.m.
Yeah.
Go till 4 a.m. some nights.
Oh my God.
And then I'd sleep till 10:30.
Yeah.
Start training at 11. Finish training at 6 p.m. Come back home, try to do all this college stuff.
Yeah.
And get back on school at 9 p.m.
Yeah. Bonkers.
Yeah.
Bonkers.
It was a tough time.
What do you think was your greatest challenge that you dealt with during your high school period? Was it all of this stuff itself and juggling, or the application process, or something else?
I think the biggest thing was trying to find balance within my life because I had so many different things that I wanted to do, but it was kind of difficult to balance all of that because I was raised with this knowledge that I could do everything as long as I didn't sacrifice my grades in school. And so as I was trying to keep that up, there was so little time to do other things. And so trying to find that balance was probably the most challenging thing, especially when I was in Ohio and I had so many, conflicting factors, studying at night, training in the morning, and stuff like that. So definitely finding balance, what I'd say was the most difficult part.
I guess maybe the last major topic to really explore is around this college application journey, because it's so rare for students to have one thing that they're really obsessed with and go as far as you did in either film or sports, but you had it in both. And you said very clearly, I'm only applying to schools where I can continue that journey on both paths there. Right. So yeah, I remember going back and forth a lot with you on your school list. How did you ultimately kind of refine that? And then why does Duke appeal to you in everything? For folks who may not know Duke.
Right. So the funny thing about Duke is that I wasn't going to apply to Duke until I think a month until the deadline. And the reason is because my coach that was primarily training me in Ohio went to Duke. Yeah. And he was telling me about, how they have a huge focus on the arts. They have an amazing arts program. Of course, they're one of the best sports schools in the country, right? I think, so to start, I was trying to find schools that I could see where I could balance both filmmaking at a high level as well as track and field at a high level. And I was refining that list, but ultimately it came down to which school gave me exactly what I wanted. Yeah. And with Duke, there was already an option to take a gap year if I wanted to in the application itself. The only school that asked me that. When I did end up deciding that I wanted to take a gap year, I was able to write it in that application. And as soon as I received my acceptance, in the acceptance they said they would let me take a gap year. And so with my acceptance to Berkeley, which is also an amazing school, great track program, great arts program, compared to Duke, it was just such a clear choice because even though both are great schools, one was offering me everything I wanted. So I had to choose Duke. That was a choice for me.
Destiny. Yeah. And gap years are something that are starting to grow in popularity, I feel like, in Vietnam. A lot of times students just need time to find out more about themselves and be mature. You had a very specific reason to take a gap year though. Tell us about this catalyst for you to take.
Yeah, I mean, it really started when I was training in the States, and with the coach that actually I trained with the first time I told you about, the high jump coach in Vietnam. I was sending him my videos, my training videos, and he's a high jump coach. I do decathlon. He was relaying those videos to the decathlon coach in Vietnam, and because they're friends and they used to train with each other. And so one day I got a message from the decathlon coach. He was introducing himself. He said he wanted to coach me. And that's when I really was like, maybe I can take a year off and sort of explore this passion of mine.
Yeah.
Because I spent so much time in school focusing on academics and my filmmaking as well. And even though I love those things, I wanted to try to see how far I could go with this other thing. And so, yeah, I spoke to my parents, and they were in full support of it, because it's something that also allowed me to sort of take a break from the normal path of life. Right after high school, going straight to college, I sort of had a breather. Not have to study, but also focus on something else that you love. And so it was really a matter of just going for it and not being scared, pushing the button.
I mean, you're only going to be 18 once.
Exactly.
It feels like, oh my God, I'm waiting a whole year before I start college. But honestly, in the big scheme of life,
right.
The 1 year is
college isn't going away.
Is a rounding error. Yeah, college is still there.
Exactly.
This national team opportunity, the SEA Games opportunity, those do not come back.
Exactly.
Right.
And funny story, actually, I think she's not going to admit it, but my sister's also taking a mid-college gap year now.
Wait, what?
Yeah, the exact year I'm taking it. And she's going to spend her time doing stuff, internships, working, and I'm extremely happy for her, but I kind of know that it's because I took one that she wanted to take one as well.
I have to ask her about that.
Yeah, it's just such a, I know so many friends doing it. One of my friends is focusing on fashion. They're they're spending their time in the studio. Yeah. Another one of my friends is working with his dad in his business. There's just so many opportunities for you to do, even just to travel and just take a breather from school. It's so worth it to experiment and find yourself as a person. As cliche as that sounds, it's actually so valuable for someone.
No, I think it's all the students we've had who've taken it actually are, it's very intentional, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So either you're doing something like you have a specific goal in mind, or it's that breather because they're not really sure what they want to do with the rest of their life.
Exactly.
And so like, why not take time to reflect and experience different things and then come back more focused? Every student that I've had who has done that has never regretted it, right? Come back laser focused, and the rest of their time in school is even more productive.
And even if you were to sit down in a couch for the whole year, you're still developing. Like your brain doesn't finish developing until you're 21, 22. And so even just if you weren't doing anything, obviously you want to stimulate your creativity and your brain, but it's just so valuable just to grow up before you go to college.
Very cool. Last 3 questions. Do you have a role model that you've looked up to in your life?
Absolutely. I'd say my biggest role models are my parents. And I think they both show me 2 different things that I want to strive for. My mom is the absolute sweetest person that I know. And I'd say that with my mom, she really teaches me to be kind to others and make sure that I'm putting others before myself. And with my dad, he is the hardest working person I know. And so just the dedication that he has for his craft is so inspiring to me. And with those 2 together, I have just such great role models to live for with my life.
I mean, I'm super excited to see just with what you've achieved already. You've always had this grounding, this humility, and I see very clearly how that comes from a strong family foundation.
Absolutely, yeah.
Do you have a book you'd recommend to others?
Yes, I would, and that's actually a book that my dad recommended to me. It's called Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, right? It's been a while since I've read it, but there was one concept in the book that really stuck with me, and that's the idea of 10,000 hours. The idea that if you want to get good at something, you have to put 10,000 hours into it. And 10,000 hours is a ridiculous amount of time, but it just shows that if you really want to be the best at something, you have to put all your time into it. And of course, you have to have room for other things, have balance in your life, but I am nowhere near the 10,000 hour mark for both filmmaking and athletics. And so I'm really excited to see what's going to happen when I get there, but just that idea of having to get those reps in is so inspiring.
Yep, absolutely, 100% agree. Last question. So given where you're at now, what advice would you give to either yourself back in 9th grade or someone who has interests and they're early in their high school journey, someone who has interest in film or sports?
I think the biggest thing I would tell myself or someone of a freshman or something like that is to be patient, because there's so much in life that doesn't come right away. This idea of delayed gratification, not chasing that instant gratification, that delayed gratification of you having to work before you reap the benefits, right? And it's hard because you want to get things right away. You want to, have fun right away. You want to have these awards right away.
Yeah.
But when you learn to be patient, which is really hard as a teenager, but when you want to be patient and you learn to be patient, it helps you get to the point where you can, chase the bigger fruit. Than getting these little achievements. You can get that big achievement.
Fantastic. Your dad and I talk about how you have to have paid your tuition before you can have any achievement, and
exactly.
You have to go through all the reps. You have to earn your way.
Exactly.
Before you can get that next opportunity. You don't get the Ohio opportunity probably if you didn't put in the work before that.
Exactly.
Right? And everything else. So
just be patient. 2 words. Simple.
Patient and 10,000.
10,000. Yeah, patient and 10,000.
And stay home. Yeah. Well, Gabe, I'm very excited to see how you continue to develop in your career. Really, really happy we had the chance to work together.
Yeah, me too. I'm so happy for that too.
Yeah. And we'll talk again soon, man.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Câu chuyện của Gabriel là một trong những câu chuyện thú vị về các bạn học sinh có đam mê theo đuổi các khối ngành nghệ thuật. Tại College Campus, chúng tôi đã giúp nhiều bạn học sinh được nhận vào các trường nghệ thuật danh tiếng. Ví dụ như bạn Avery được nhận vào ngành làm phim tại trường Emerson College, hoặc là Thảo Nguyên được nhận vào ngành âm nhạc tại trường Bard College. Nếu các bạn cũng muốn ứng tuyển vào các trường nghệ thuật ở Mỹ hoặc vẫn còn đang phân vân về hướng đi này, hãy nhấn vào đường link bên dưới để đăng ký tư vấn 11 miễn phí. Đừng quên nhấn nút subscribe và nhận thông báo cho những video tiếp theo của Everest Education. Nếu bạn thấy video này hữu ích, hãy like và share để video được chia sẻ đến nhiều người hơn và lan tỏa những giá trị có ích cho mọi người. Nếu bạn mong muốn được học hỏi từ các chuyên gia giàu kinh nghiệm, College Campus chính là người đồng hành ở bên bạn trên chặng đường chinh phục giấc mơ của mình. Đừng quên nhấn nút subscribe và nhận notification để theo dõi những video và nội dung mới nhất từ College Campus nhé.